This is the Alden Report.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be Wicked Happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com, apparel to make you smile.
This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, my name is Mike Alden. We are here in Blue Bay Studios. I'm actually not rocking my 99% glasses. I do have them there, but I just decided, you know what? I'm not going to wear them today. I don't know why, but maybe my eyes, they don't look as bad as they normally do. But anyway, it's not about me. Super excited for my next guest. My next guest is a fellow Bostonian that I just found out. Wasn't aware of this. She comes to us all the way from Croatia right now. And she's here to talk a little bit about, how we can grow as human beings, grow in business, grow in life. She's also an author. She's written a book. It's a best-selling book. You know what? Just right when we kind of got on, I already felt like, man, this is going to be a fun one. So look, if you're looking, we have a lot of people that come on that talk about changing lives and doing all these things. I'm super excited for my next guest. Her name is Kass Thomas. She not only has helped herself and others, but she continues to do it, and she's literally doing it all over the world. When we talk about all over the world, she's actually in Croatia right now. So, and she decided to spend a little bit of time with us. So please help me welcome Kass Thomas. Kass, thanks so much for being here.
It is such a pleasure to be here with a fellow Bostonian. How cool is that?
Right. We didn't even
so
know
much.
that until you said, and I try not to have the accent, but if I have a couple drinks in me, it usually comes out.
Exactly. Me too. How Bostonians, if there's an A followed by an R, we never even pronounce the R.
So you
So
grew up
funny.
in Dorchester, as we would say.
In Dorchester.
Dorchester.
No, yeah.
Which is a kind of a suburb of Boston, or just Boston proper. Tell me a little bit about let's start there, if you have time. Let's start growing up there, because look, I grew up in the projects in Beverly. Believe it or not, people don't believe there's projects in Beverly, but there are. Dorchester, there are nice parts of every town, but Dorchester probably wasn't the easiest place to grow up, I'm guessing. Tell me a little bit about your background and growing up in Boston.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I grew up on Crawford Street in Dorchester. The next block is Roxbury, so it's sort of like the Roxbury, Dorchester area. And from our house at the top, before all the trees were growing, you could see, downtown. You could see the John Hancock from the top of our porch. So it's about 10 minutes really from downtown Boston. Boston is, it's really lovely. Now living in Europe, and most Europeans feel at home in Boston, because when we talk about New England, right, it's got a lot of the same structure. And this area where I grew up, it used to be a Jewish area, right? And I don't know if you know this, but where in Jewish areas in Europe, they call them the ghettos.
Yeah. I was gonna say
Right,
that,
but
yeah.
not this, yeah. So, so really, once the Jewish people in Dorchester, Roxbury got a bit more money, let's say, they moved out into the suburbs and into the area where people coming from all around the world, all around, from Puerto Rico, from Haiti, from different places. So it was really like a small melting pot. And then when I moved to New York, it was a bigger melting pot. So lots of different cultures there, lots of different languages there also. And so it was really quite an interesting area. I really enjoyed it. But I just got, and this is what I was saying to you before, Mark, I just got, and maybe I need something that's larger. I never knew that there were only like 650,000 people living in Boston. I thought it was maybe millions, right? Until I went to New York, where it's like between 6-7 million people living there. Yeah.
I think the population in Boston like 10x's in the in September, right, with all the schools.
Really?
Yes, yeah, I saw something about that. It goes from whatever the number is to like literally almost 10 times the population, because you got BC, BU, Northeastern, Harvard, MIT, and just yeah. Also,
Right,
I've been
right,
told, just on
exactly.
a side note, like if you ever want to get a good deal on a really expensive car, um, you can look for those like in the summertime, because all the super rich kids from all over the world, they just literally just dump them. They don't bring them back. So it's a little side tip for you.
Also, when I moved to Rome, right, my father-in-law was saying to me, I heard that it rains like one third of the time in Boston, or snows. And I was like, really? How much do we, when we're living in a place, not really seeing it from a global perspective? And this is what I really love about business, about life, really inviting people to see that, this whole world, this land, this earth, this is ours, right? So if you, whatever the business you want to do, whatever the ways that you would like to engage with people, if you recognize that this is your home, then you never feel out of place. You never feel like you're not comfortable in a place, and that's the invitation I love to be. And so I was at quite a bit in Boston too. And then when I would come back to the US, I would go home to Boston, right? I didn't really realize that I never lived there as an adult. I left at 18. So my adult life was the first part of it was spent in New York, which is really quite different. But I got to tell you, I love, love, love the seafood in Massachusetts and
Can't beat that.
Boston.
Although,
And
I
did you
mean,
know, do you think that we did the clam chowder? Do you think that we started that?
well, first of all, I don't know. Second of all, I don't like clam chowder, but I'm
Okay.
curious. I'm curious to hear the answer.
I went to Ireland, right? And my husband was like, why do you know so much about this place? The first time I went to Ireland. And Boston, it's like a little Ireland, And anyway, I was enjoying it a lot until they said, no, 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 you and Boston did not invent the clam chowder. We did that here in Ireland. I was like, hold it. We've got the best clam chowder, but theirs is good too.
Yeah, that's them's fighting words, I guess, in Boston. But
Yeah,
you know what? I
exactly.
mean, there's a big Irish population in Boston, so who knows?
Yeah, and it's really amazing. If you live in Boston, if anyone, uh, and you haven't yet been to Ireland, definitely go because you would definitely feel at home.
Love it. All right, let's get into what you're doing right now, what you've been doing for people. So, how does one go from, um, just growing up, and then writing a book, and motivating people, and training. I mean, you have all these things that you're doing for people, and helping activate their consciousness, which kind of piqued my interest. I'm a practitioner of TM, transcendental meditation, and I know,
Nice.
and so yeah. How do you how does that happen? Because I think the most people that I've met that are doing that type of work, they might have had a kind of a difficult moment in their life. You talk a little bit about that and some of the things and materials that I saw. Tell me a little bit about your journey to deciding to help others really kind of level up their own lives.
Yeah. Well, it's really cold in Boston. It's funny when you're in a warm place, right? People are somehow closer physically together, right? And there's something about the sun always shining that makes you smile. And I get what I see when I see people is the truth of who they are, the light that's inside of them, the the essence, their essence, And so a lot of times people let so many things invade them, so many limitations that they buy as real, that things that they can only do up to a certain level. And so what I've always invited, even as a kid, is for people to really recognize what's unique and different about them. What is their unique brand of magic is what I
But how
call
did
it. In
that
business, we call it your unique selling point,
but how did
right?
that happen for you, right? Like it doesn't just go from growing up in Boston, going to New York. what drove you towards this? Like, did you, and really kind of who taught you, that you had a special gift in helping others? Was there a moment in your life, or was there a particular kind of study that you were looking at? Were you, did you learn
I
meditation or what? You know what I mean? Like, where did that start?
Yeah, well, it's so interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book, Seth Speaks, right? So even as a kid, even the preteen, I was reading these books. I would go with my sister anyway. These people would, turn over your teacup and read your tea leaves and stuff like that. And even when I moved to New York, I would go to these mind, body, spirit places, even if people that I wasn't engaged with weren't really interested in that. What I really liked is when people are feeling comfortable in their own skin, then they're kind, you know? So it's not that people who are detached are not kind. It's just maybe they have experienced some kind of abuse, maybe they have never been appreciated. And so what I always try to get people to do, and what I did as a kid was like, even be very pushy as a kid to get people to laugh, to relax, to give a hug, And I didn't really recognize this, until I started working with people, because people said, there's something about you that there's no judgment, there's no separation. And I've got to thank my mom for that, because she was a nurse, and when she was first started nursing, she was working at the Jewish Memorial Hospital. So she would always come home and, say some words to us. But as a kid, you didn't know those words were not in English, and not until I went to New York. And, my partner in my first class at NYU was like, "Why is it that you speak Yiddish?" And I was like, "What? What are you talking about? I don't speak Yiddish." He said, "Yes, you're saying don't be a Meshuggah to me. That's Yiddish." So I'm really grateful for, this sort of really inclusive way that my mom was living, and the way that she had doctors she worked with who were, homosexual and transvestites, and going into her clinic. And she went into private practice with an Indian doctor who was a Muslim doctor. So all I grew up without distinguishing different cultures, but actually having them as part of my life. So moving to New York, which is this huge sort of melting pot, right? What I knew at 8 years old, Mark, when I had an Irish American lady teaching me in the third grade, she would write on our board every day in French, "Good morning. Today is Monday. Good morning. Today is Tuesday. Good morning. Today is Wednesday. Bonjour. Aujourd'hui est lundi." And I said at 8 years old, you know what? After a year of seeing how to write that and say that in French, I said, you know what? One day I'm going to grow up. I'm going to live in Paris and I'm going to speak French. And that's like growing up in the hood, but that was my inspiration to. Then I went to NYU. I spent my third year in college, my junior year abroad, a year in Paris. My dad was like, "What are you going to study French for? Spanish is going to be the second language in this country. If you don't speak Spanish, you're not going to get a job. And what are you doing?" And he was like, "And don't study French as your main study in college." So I studied journalism, mass communication and broadcast journalism. But I took enough French so that I could go to Paris. And that just opened up a whole world for me. And I realized that everywhere that I went, I knew there was something there for me, and I really enjoyed discovering, right, what was unique and different about that country, about that language, about the people. So, what I was saying to you before is that I know that there's something that inspires me in everyone. And if they're not recognizing what's inspirational about them, then I'm the invitation for them to do that. And I work with communication all the time. And I say to people, if you meet someone and you think it's the most boring person you've ever met in your life, right? They must have some kind of talent and ability to live in this world, have all these molecules and cells and space and water going around in their body, and to be so still and boring. So that's something that's unique about them. So if you don't go into judgment about it, people will look at you and say, wow, why aren't they judging me? And they'll open up to you, and you will have a communication with them that is unique, and different. So that's why I'm inviting people through my 7 Steps program, through my Access Consciousness classes, through my Dancing with Riches workshops, to really be willing to look at what is unique and different about you, and how can you utilize that to invite people to engage with you in a different way, develop a business in a way that maybe there's hundreds of people, thousands of people that do the same business you do, but there's no one that does you like you, and there's no one that will do it exactly the same way as you. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. In a second, I want to talk to you about a bunch of things, but I want to start with risk, and how we deal with risk in life. And I know you have some thoughts on that, and work with people on that as well. We are on with Kass Thomas again. If you're just listening to her background is really, really interesting. I really love that you shared that with us, and I think you really had a really unique opportunity that your parents really actually kind of introduced you to through these multicultural individuals and professions and things like that. I think that's one big impact on your life. But again, if you'd like some more information about Kass, you can just go to kassthomas.com. It's KASS Thomas.com. She works with individuals, she works with companies. She's also, we talked about as well, she's a best-selling author, but she helps you again kind of unlock the stuff that's within you. She just kind of alluded to that a little bit earlier. Everybody does have it. You just, sometimes we need someone like Kass to work with us to really kind of help us get there. And I'm super excited that she's spending some time with us all the way from Croatia today to share with us some of the tips, strategies, and techniques and the things that she's learned throughout the years. Again, her background, which mentioned earlier, very, very unique to be able to be introduced to all these different cultures and backgrounds. And that's really, again, I think it's really obviously kind of shaped, who you are today.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be wicked happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com, apparel to make you smile.
So risk, you talk a little bit about, risk and how it's, how it can be managed. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on it. I literally just posted something about that, I think last week on the podcast, where I talk a lot about risk, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yes. Well, so many people, when they think about risk, they think about how much or what they might lose, right? And what about what you might gain and what you might be able to discover, right? That is waiting for you. I mean, there's lots of different things. I know you work with meditation, right? There's some sort of, modalities that say everything already exists. It's just about you actually recognizing it and choosing it. And there's a lovely, phrase.
What do you mean by everything already exists?
Everything already exists. Like, have you ever had been looking only in one direction and you never looked off to in another direction to see something that was waiting there for you? If, for example, if you're going into business, and you think, well, I don't have a master's degree in business. But what I work with people with is to actually discover some of the different ways that they look at business, which is unique and different for them. So I was working in the hospitality industry where I met I just went over that last night. I met lots of famous actors and engaged with them. I even won a award from Where magazine, the top concierge of the year, working in 5-star hotels in New York. And the one thing that really let me know that risk is actually something that opens up different possibilities for you that already exist. I was going to change my job and work at another hotel that was even more exclusive. And something stopped me from going on my interview there. And they said, Kass, this is not even an interview. You've already been accepted. We just have to, fill out the documents and all that. And you know what, Mark, I couldn't go. There was something that was knocking on my door. I wasn't even clear what it was. But I said, if I continue doing exactly what I've been doing for almost 10 years, then I will be on a predetermined route, right? And never risk exploring something new. So I had a period of about 6 months that absolutely changed my life. And after those 6 months, what got presented to me was traveling, doing management for a jazz singer all over the US, all over Europe, since I was not only speaking French, I was also speaking Spanish because my dad, said, look, you got to learn Spanish. So after studying in Paris for a year, I went down to Spain for a couple of months, and it was quite easy to learn Spanish because nobody spoke any English or French down there. And so when I started traveling, with this jazz artist who said to me, look, I can't pay you because I'm just starting out my career, but I can pay your travel. I can pay your food and lodging. And since you speak languages, you can help me with my interviews. And so, do you want to risk going into a career that has nothing to do with what you've been doing, not take a job that is something that is actually, already available for you, making lots of money? There was something else waiting for me. I didn't know what it was, but you can never fail. You either win or you learn something. And what I learned is that in taking that risk and not continuing with this career, is that there was so much more waiting for me. So I started working in theater. I started working in music. I even moved to Rome. I opened up a production company, a film production company. I made a film with an American guy that was living there. And I started realizing how much risk was actually a way to tap into a much wider, right, area of your life that maybe if you weren't willing to take a risk, you'd never see. And you get there in your retirement and say, I wonder what would have happened if I had been willing to take a risk.
If I had only syndrome, I call that.
Yes, if I had only syndrome. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear that all the time.
So
if I'd only done this,
yeah,
if I'd only,
yeah.
went on that trip. And man, I just, I so appreciate what you're saying, because I haven't done as much stuff as you, but I have done the things where, like, you know what, I'm going to Europe for a month and backpacking, and I left my job, and or I'm going here, or I'm doing this, or I'm taking that, you're right. And I just wrote down win or learn. I just love, you always hear about, there's always a silver lining. I've read about that in my books, but I love win or learn. That's I wrote that down, and I'm going to probably post that out and give you credit for it. So, you're talking about risk. As human beings, our DNA, our anatomy tries to avoid risk. And so I think that's why a lot of us have trouble with it. But the way you described it is great. And what you're also talking about with that risk is change, right? And they say,
Absolutely.
right, the only thing that's constant is change, right? Talk
Absolutely.
a little bit about,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So talk
So
about that.
Yeah, well, what I really love to accompany people on their journey of being in step with the energy of change. It is the only constant that is there. And if you get bored, right? If you are not willing to, like we said, risk or to actually ride the waves of change, right? Then you begin, even if you're young, diminishing, right? Your joy factor. And so, can you just imagine what that's like when you're living with other people or you're working with other people and you're not curious, you're not inspired, you're not looking for what it is that's in line with your vibration that actually brings you joy, like whatever you're doing, that sometimes you wake up, you know, and forget to go to sleep or forget to eat or it's something that really warms your heart, you know? And it allows what I say your inner light to shine out. So if you're willing to actually be seen, if you're willing to be heard, then you're actually willing to see and hear other people too, you
Yes.
know.
Is
And
there a
when
way
we're
to do it
in,
though? Is there a way to do it where, okay, people listening right now, let's say they have a career that they're pretty locked into, they have a family, maybe they're at the halfway point in their life, and they still know that it's not what they want. What do you say to those people? What do you say to the moms with kids and and the dads with with the mortgages and like, because I think about my life and some of the things that I've done, kind of later on in life because I might not have been happy. And, there are huge changes and huge risks that most people, quite frankly, just couldn't afford to do. So what do you say to those people that they're just not happy? They want more. They want that change. Their risk tolerance, just by the nature of their lifestyle, is very low. What do you say to those people? How can they do it? How can they take advantage of what you're teaching? Again, if you do want some more information, you can just go to kassthomas.com. So tell me about those people, because I think that's a majority of the people here in the United States. They're trapped in their own lifestyle, and like you mentioned earlier, they get to the end, and then if I had only syndrome kills them.
yeah. And a lot of times, you know, when it's not trapped in their lifestyle, it's trapped in a lifestyle that they think that they need to have, or then in a particular job that they need to have, or a particular really linear way of getting to what they've uh, identified as success. You know, I mean, what I invite people to do, and this is even my first book is about communication. As people always ask me, you know, the way you communicate with people, it's really amazing, right? Can you tell me how to communicate with people? And what I tell people, and this is also what I write about in Advancing with Riches, is you first have to connect with you. Okay. First have to, we call it intuition, we call it sixth sense, you know, we call it your gut feeling. You first have to know when you're choosing something, when you're making a decision, when you are saying yes or saying no, what is it that is beyond your thinking mind, your cognitive mind, right? That is actually your genius, you know, your sixth sense, your intuition. You know, I was working, one of my clients is really successful living in Italy, but he's French, and a bank manager, you know, international bank manager. And he wanted to even get a higher position. So he went on his interview, you know, and they said, you know, you're amazing at coming up with a plan of how to move forward with a new program and how to follow each and every one of those steps. But if something shows up, right, that was not predictable, do you have any idea how to adjust what you've already structured? Do you have any intuition? And he was like, what is intuition? And so they advised him to go and get some coaching.
Spoken
And it
like a
was
banker.
working, yeah, working with him. And he actually did get that. But a lot of times we never even consider that we are the ones that know what is best for us, even if it doesn't make sense, you know? If you're willing to connect with you before trying to connect with others, right? Connect with you and disconnect from who you are not, all the sort of resistance that you have or the reactions you have, the walls and barriers that you have. A lot of times we put on these masks. Hello, yes, my name is Kass, and I am actually, yes, a coach, and I'm also a writer. Yes, we put on these masks that are fabricated, and we feel like that's how we have to communicate with people, but that's not authentically us. That's not genuinely us, and that's not the truth of who we are, right? So what I invite people to do, and there's so many ways to do it. I mean, I'd love to hear more about your TM, your meditation. Sometimes it can be something as simple as waking up in the morning, looking into your eyes, and saying good morning to you. And there's something my breathing changes when I'm actually connected. You might even want to put your hand on your heart. The way your heart beats is just a little bit different than the way others do. But being connected with you allows you to see when something is in line with your vibration. Because what works for you, what's right for you, may not work for me, may not be right for me. And if you're really willing to take this journey called life, in a way that allows you to really explore why you're here, what you're here to do, and how much you can enjoy it, then money gets attracted to you. I mean, can you imagine if you were money, right? And you got off an elevator, and on one side, everyone had been asking for money. On one side, the lights are dim because people don't want to spend that much money on lighting. There's no music. They're not smiling or laughing or dancing, because they're really concerned about getting things right and doing it right and then, working on getting money, right? And then on the left, maybe there's lights, people are, they don't have a lot of food, but maybe they're eating and dancing and enjoying their life. Like if you were money, where would you go? To the right or to the left?
I want to party. Let's
You
party it
might,
up.
exactly. And then also, how much is that really allowing the flow of money to come into your life, And even if you're a multi-millionaire, you know, is that enough? Or would you like to have a flow that you can actually then contribute to the world? So I really invite people to find whatever way works for you. Might be a breathing exercise, might be yoga, right? Might be really connecting with your intuition in a way, right? That allows you to always choose what's right for you, even if it doesn't make sense. And then recognizing when you're not connected with you, because a lot of times we communicate with people and we're like, I don't really know why that person doesn't like me. I didn't really know why they talk to me like that. I mean, if you're not connected to you, are they talking to you? Is it you that they don't like? Or is it who you're trying to be? Or who you're pretending to be? Or what you're doing that's not really working for you? And that just invites lots of possibilities into your life that continue to open up. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Boy, I'm glad you came on today. And I always tell people, I've been doing this podcast now, I think for 8 years. And for me, it's a bit of a selfish thing. We don't necessarily make money with this, but it's more about being able to connect with people like you and learn from people like you as well. In a second, I want to talk to you about coming out the other side. And people go through a traumatic event. So many of us go through them. We all go through them. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I was telling her that. But most of us, actually, I don't know what the number is, but I would think that a vast majority of people who go through traumatic events, they either stay there or they just stay beaten down and they decide not to maybe take more risk or change and all that other stuff. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what people can do that go through that traumatic event and how to come out the other side. Again, we've been on with Kass Thomas. If you've been listening, really listening to her wisdom and her knowledge. I think you're really, really going to want to learn more about her. You can just go to kassthomas.com. It's KASS Thomas.com. She has a bunch of different, she has a book, obviously, you can purchase. You can click right through on her website, bring you right to the book on Amazon. But also she works with individuals. She works with groups as well. She literally does it all over the world. She's coming to us from Croatia right now, where she was just working with a group of people to help them become a better version of themselves. So again, if you'd like some more information about Kass, just go to kassthomas.com. So, you know, we all suffer trauma, different versions of it throughout our life. I ask this question all the time. In fact, I asked Les Brown when he was on about, is it necessary to go through pain? Like, do we have to go through pain in order to be successful? And, he basically said yes. He gave a great story. And a lot of people have kind of said yes. I've had other people say, well, you don't have to. I believe that pain is a necessary element of success. Just my opinion, because everyone that I know that's really successful has gone through some really, really heavy shit, and they made it out the other side. You talk about that. I'd love to hear your thoughts and what people can do to overcome those difficult times in their lives, because we all face them.
Absolutely. And sometimes they're quite a gift, I mentioned about those 6 months of my life where, changing the careers, leaving a job. Dear friend of mine died, and then I left my first marriage after 10 years, and was really a time in my life where I didn't know what was supposed to be happening, but I knew that what was happening, right, needed some change, So pain can be emotional. It can also be physical, but usually if physical or emotional pain is showing up, it's probably something that you have not been willing or able to look at that's not working for you, So it depends on where you want to put your time, your energy, and your money, right? Where you want to spend that. Do you want to spend it looking at what you've done wrong, right? In my book, Dancing with Riches, I talk about door number one, when you realize that something's really not working for you, you might call it pain. Door number one, right? Where you say, oh my goodness, what have I done? All the things I've done wrong, really going down the rabbit hole, right? That's one way we use a lot of our time, a lot of our energy, a lot of our money, right? Or pretending that you're not aware of what's going on, of that you had something knocking on your door, You start turning up the music so you don't hear that knocking on your door. That's when pain starts showing up, when you're not really willing to look at what's already out there, what's been calling you, what has you have not been acknowledging or recognizing. And somehow God, Allah, Buddha, the universe, your body has to break down, right, the structure that you have created so that you actually have that chance to look up and stop looking down and see what the world has waiting for you. So door number two, right? That door number one is like going into the wrongness of you. Oh my gosh, why don't I ever, and why can't I, and why, right? Door number two, pretending that nothing is happening, not really recognize it. And door number three, we use this a lot in Access Consciousness, ask a question. So what is really going on here? What is waiting for me? What is it that I can choose, right? That will change my life. And look up. Because the moment you ask that question and are not looking for a specific answer, just looking to see what it is that's waiting for you, somebody's going to call you. Somebody's going to run by you, even somebody who's, screaming and yelling. But there's so many things that are actually going to be visible, audible, right? And reachable that have never been before. So that door number three, right, is about asking a question. What is it that is waiting for me? What is it that I can do or be or choose now that I have not up until now been willing to see? And then just see who or what shows up. Start, the phone rings, answer it. A newspaper falls in front of you, pick it up and see what is showing up. And maybe it's you listening to this podcast at this moment in your life, and see if something, you don't have to necessarily talk with me, it might be something you read, maybe this conversation we're having that actually inspires something in you, because we're not alone. We never have been, and we never will be. And sometimes you feel like you are falling down, falling back, and reducing, your possibilities. That's not true. Sometimes you have to go down to ground zero, and then what shows up is going to be something that changes your life. I was working in Rome. I had a production company. Now, in the States, you have a film production company. I had it for 6 years. It was a mess. I did a great film. I even did a commercial for the United Nations. Kofi Annan presented that in New York at the UN. And that was it. I did lots of little short films and stuff like that. Finally, I said, you know what? I'm going to close this company. The moment I closed that company, I got so many job offers, and I started working with film production, not production companies, festivals, right? I worked for 10 years with a Mediterranean film festival, right? Just people from all around Europe, all around the Mediterranean. It was amazing. And that went on for 10 years. And then it was like, a little bit not feeling that great. The moment I reduced that, changed that, I even got more offers for something, working with TV festivals and television festivals, meeting producers of television from around the world, even this great guy from HBO, flying him into Rome to participate in this business section of the film festival, and just keep moving. And the moment that festival closed after 5 years, I started hosting some inspirational speakers, the founder of Access Consciousness, Gary Douglas, and they inspired me to really begin coaching and setting up a business that allowed me to invite people to discover their unique brand of magic and their global approach to life and communication and business that they could have. And I've been doing that for years, and it brings me joy, and it brings other people joy. And then they start having success and making money and finding lovers and getting married and having kids and, doing businesses. And it warms my heart and keeps me going.
I love it. Well, again, I want to thank you for spending some time with us all the way from Croatia. Listening to you has really inspired me. I got a lot of things, out of what you said. And I think of, that classic kind of saying, when one door closes, another one opens. And that's kind of like what you've talked about a little bit here as well. It's hard for people, I think, to recognize when they're going through that pain, that, they're unwilling to make that change. But a lot of times that change, like you said, does open up a bigger door or a bigger opportunity. Listen, if you've been listening right now or watching right now, you have to be motivated. You have to recognize that what Kass has been saying is something that each and every one of us have to do. And a lot of times it is painful to think about. But if you go to KassThomas.com, it's KASS Thomas.com. She has programs there that you can take advantage of. She has a newsletter you can take advantage of. And her book as well, Dancing with Riches, can also help you. It's available on Amazon. Go to KassThomas.com. You can click through it there. One of the things that she's showing right now, too, if you watch on YouTube, one of the things that I've learned throughout my life, and, I'm a type A type personality, big dude, football player, blah, 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 is all this stuff that Kass is talking about. It's real and it works, but you have to be willing to do it. And sometimes, a lot of times, you'd mentioned this earlier, Kass, people kind of hit that bottom in order for them to kind of bounce up. Yeah, I don't believe you need to do that, but I do believe, like Kass has been talking about, you need to recognize that there is time for change. And she's done it. So many people have done it. And at the end of the day, it's all about your happiness. And so thank you so much, Kass, for being here. I really, really appreciate you. Again, if you want some more information about Kass, go to KassThomas.com. My name is Mike Alden. That's Kass Thomas, all the way from Croatia, and by way of Dorchester, as we would say. This has been another edition of the Alden Report, and we'll see you soon.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be wicked happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com, apparel to make you smile.